AskReddit by Sprinkles 9. What is the worst decision an author has made? Richard Britton tracking down a girl who gave him a bad book review and hitting her over the head with a bottle. That sounds like the oddest combination of meticulous planning and spontaneous rage. Bram Stoker not getting an American copyright for Dracula. Just like J.R.R. Tolkien's British publishing house didn't secure the rights for paperbacks in the US, that led to cheaply made paperbacks that he hated, thanks to which his fame exploded. The American publishing house asked him what they should do with the author's share they had dutifully set aside, even though neither he nor his publishing house had agreed to any deal. Tolkien wrote back, in effect, "Just send me the check," and they did. So that's one publishing mess up that worked out famously in all possible ways for the author. Michael Grant, co-author of Animorphs and husband of Catherine Applegate, has stated that they fucked up letting their agent talk them into granting the media rights of the series to Scholastic. I saw an interview with them not too long ago where they talked about writing intensely adult themes for kids, which was something I always appreciated about that series as a kid. It didn't pander or soften the story at all just because it was for kids. It had lots of violence and emotional trauma and all kinds of things other kids series didn't have, which made it a great transitional series into more adult literature. In 1971, William Powell, then a teenager, wrote and had published a book called The Anarchist Cookbook, which informed readers how to build homemade explosives and weapons, how to build phone-freaking devices, and how to make illegal drugs including LSD. He spent most of the rest of his life disavowing the book, trying to have it removed from publication at points, though failing as he did not own the copyright, and had trouble trying to find work as a result of his book. Aren't all the recipes in the book wrong anyway? Like how to make explosives has deliberate song steps to make people blow off their hands or something? I've never read the book, but that rumor I heard is entirely plausible. Though it might be a rumor to scare off people from actually using the knowledge in the book. L. Ron Hubbard started a cult. If you read some of his novels, you might see why he thought being a cult leader was the better gig. Marion Zimmer Bradley Shoulder, maybe not one, defended her pedophile husband, particularly in court, where the transcripts are very much still saved. 2. Been a pedophile herself and abused their daughter. She attempted to adopt children her husband wanted to abuse too, and she abused her son as well. Stephen King hated Carrie with a passion to the point of where he had pretty much thrown it in the bin, calling it a waste of time. His wife read it one day and said it was one of the best female lead stories she'd read in a while and urged him to publish it. This decision by his wife is what kickstarted his career and made him famous overnight. If she hadn't urged him on, who knows how King's career would have played out. He still hates the book and has no idea why people like it, while his wife still maintains it's her favorite. Lol. Similar thing happened with Pet Sematary. He considered it too dark, even for him, and kept it in a file cabinet for years, never intending to publish it. He was switching to a new publisher, but still contractual owed his current publisher one more book. He had nothing else and was running out of time, so he published Pet Sematary, which is now considered one of his classics. The third Dexter novel. Edit, didn't provide more details because I blocked it out quickly after reading. Something about Dexter being a serial killer because he is possessed by an ancient Babylonian demon or something. He got kicked out of his laboratory. Stephen King shoulder never taken a walk that day. His post-injury stuff is pretty damn good though. Still can't understand why Stephen King thought that having the boys run a train on Beverly at the end of it was a good idea. You've got to remember, Stephen King loved cocaine. William Burroughs was messed up on drugs and, allegedly, showed off his William Tell act which killed his wife. Yes, he, allegedly, accidentally shot his wife in the head as part of an, alleged, party game that none of his friends had heard of before, and when he and his wife were, allegedly, quarreling heavily. I work in publishing, and you would be surprised how many authors die on a hill that ultimately hurts the sales of their books or makes the content too dense for readers to connect to. Would you mind elaborating on that? What sort of aspects are considered too dense in the publishing world, and is there a particular genre that does it more often than others? That one author who was in a Facebook group of authors announced her own death and played dead for like 2 years because she thought it'd increase her book sales, and then she randomly came back one day like, surprise, I'm not actually dead. Eater, Susan Meacham, faked her own suicide for over 2 years online to a self-publishing romance writing group that she claimed bullied her. Who was that? Who was the German guy who was a gifted novelist and a serial killer? Jack Unterweger. He was Austrian. https://en.wikipedia.org/wiki/Jack. He was in jail for murdering women when he got attention for his writing, and it played a major part in the decision to release him. He then continued killing women. It wasn't novels he was known for, though it was his autobiography. GRRM licensed the rights for a TV show before finishing the book series. Also never finishing his book series. Having a co-author take over a great series and ruin it. Although, I do think Brandon Sanderson did a stellar job of finishing Wheel of Time. Spinning off the Daughter of the Empire series with Janie Wertz had an excellent finished product with Raymond D. Feist. And I don't think I would have encountered Elizabeth Moon were it not for collaboration with Anne McCaffrey. When Sir Arthur Conan Doyle killed off Sherlock Holmes. To be fair, he wanted to write something else, be recognized for something else, and Holmes was his character to do with as he pleased. The backlash to Holmes's death was absolutely unprecedented. People wore black armbands upon his death, and a woman even hit Doyle with her handbag. He eventually relented, going back to writing Holmes, but it wasn't with the same fervor as he had before. It was now about making others happy, fulfilling contracts, and getting a paycheck, rather than writing Holmes because he wanted to. If he wrote anything else, it was always eclipsed by his detective. Years later, Doyle died, nobody wore black armbands, and the headlines read, Arthur Conan Doyle, author of Sherlock Holmes, has died. This always comes to mind when considering poor endings. The young adult book My Side of the Mountain. The ending was so ill-conceived I was embarrassed for the author when reading the book aloud. An example of an exciting, well-researched, and written book, whose author, IDK, lost the plot. Probably the deadline coming soon and she had to get them a manuscript. And X200B. Edited for gender. This is fairly recent but no less egregious. Kate Corain creating fake Goodreads profiles to review bomb other authors, all POC, after she had cinched a book deal. This is the response I came here for. It's hard to understate just how bad of a screw up this was. She had a title scheduled for wide release with a big name publisher. She had fantastic early reviews. She had a fandom that was hyped for her book to drop. She had a gorgeous cover and beautiful character art. She had a book box. She had an industry that welcomed her with open arms. It was a fantastic deal, and even more so for a debut. And she threw it all away because a golden publishing contract somehow wasn't enough. Some of the authors she review bombed were her personal friends who had helped her out in the past. The second half of Forrest Gump, when the story goes completely off the fucking rails for no reason. Allegedly, there's a reasonably good reason for this. Butterscotch Horseman challenging that random lunatic in Montana to a duel regarding criticism of his book. What is this? A crossover episode? Patrick Rothfuss doing a charity event for him to read a chapter from Doors of Stone, Kingkiller Chronicle. He never delivered. https://www.reddit.com/r/books/comments/w-2/in. Man. For as much hate as Sanderson gets in the community, it is fucking awesome being a fan of his and not having to deal with the Rothfuss Martin nonsense of prayers and tears and coming to terms with the fact you will never get what you desire. The only fantasy author you can actually trust to finish a 10-part series because he is the only author that accidentally writes extra books in between all the other books he is writing, all of which he is very clear about the expected timeline on and which he consistently meets deadlines. Patrick Rothfuss not finishing the Kingkiller Chronicle. Deleted. When John Grisham said that not all men who watch child porn are pedophiles. What the fuck? Johan Unterweger was a serial killer of women. While in prison for his horrible crimes, he began writing, and his writing attracted the attention of the Austrian elite, who began a big campaign for his release. They got their wish, and he was released 15 years into his life sentence, the minimum amount of time. Unfortunately, as Cracked.com put it, oddly enough, Jack apparently still really liked killing hookers. In the first year of his release, Johan killed 8 women, then another 3 more in the year after that. He later killed himself after he was convicted for these murders. And all this because some of his writing was popular among Austrian intellectuals. It's been suggested since that his most notable work, an autobiography, wasn't even really written by him.